Hi guys. I guess we're going to talk about AUVI. Weak market stuff. So of course I was expecting weak market stuff. Um, you took a couple shorts on this. This is kind of your classic high day squeeze, right? We had an ultra painted, uh, pre-market high day was somewhere around here. Um, there's lower highs in the pre-market, lower high in this push. I didn't have any read. I was actually looking to short this given the weak market. A lot of times these like grindy towards high day stocks don't make it to high day, especially if it's a weaker market. But we'll go over why I didn't short it. It was a lot of interesting stuff going on here. But been watching my videos, been talking about this quick pullback. The way these quick pullbacks work or have been working is it creates a lot of empty space up higher, right? And every short kind of expects it to kind of just like do this, right? Just like go straight down. But usually what happens on low float stocks is they pull it down, they start trapping shorts, they start building higher lows, get the longs interested, right? And then they rotate it, essentially a backside clear out. They fake a bunch of strength, and then they pull it, right? So this is what I was expecting, given the weak market and given the book. So there's bookmap stuff, weak market stuff, and I kind of shorted this backside play right up here, right? So the range on this was not impressive. So there were some bullish factors going on in the stock. Saying in the Discord, I was like, hey, high day, a lot of lower highs at high day. High day's super painted. You can't ever forget about chart paint, right? If you got three lower highs, there's high day, then there's three lower highs right below high day. It's just something you got to remember, right? It's a factor. It doesn't mean it's going to squeeze like this all the time, but it is a factor. Um, and the other bullish factor was the fact the stock was only up. When I shorted this pop, the stock was up like 35, 40%. It wasn't really up a whole lot. So I just thought weak market, I could get like 315s down into the 260s, kind of a standard pattern, standard book. I thought it'd be I didn't think it'd be a huge winner, but I thought um, the idea was sound and the winning percentage was high. Uh, I did de-risk here because the entire time there's a support level at 2.85. I'm like, I told the Discord, I'm like, I'm gonna put my alert below 2.85, but what I was thinking during this multi-hour soak here was like, man, there's a lot of higher lows. So once this cracks this higher lows, there should be a lot of continuation down, below 2.8 and below 2.7, and we should, get a nice little fade towards the lows, right? So that was my expectation. And then when my alert went off for 2.85, um, you know, at or below 2.5, I started watching it. I'm like, oh, it should just unwind really easily. But the volume was so thin, and I really hate fades that are on like, yeah, the dump candles might be 100K, but the other candles are like 5K, 7K, 3K, and it gets like these like really, really, really thin fades. Um, and I really wasn't liking how it was reacting around 2.8, and I was just like, you know what, I'll actually take some off because I'm only really expecting 2.6s anyways on this type of fade, so let me just take some off because I could clearly see they're walking it down. You could see the lower highs, they're walking it down. It's really thin. It should have a much bigger crack than it does given all these, higher lows, right? So just let me de-risk a little bit. Told the room that, hey, I'm de-risking a little bit. Um, and then we got this very aggressive backside move. And I'm like, oh man, this could kind of go either way, right? Because you got the painted lower highs, and they soaked the stock the entire day, right? So, there's this like full day consolidation where every short seller is kind of has their average, including me, has their average, right in here. Um, but I was like, let me wait for the second push. I saw the second push into there's a million ask up here. There's so many ask up here. Like, okay, let me just short the second push in case they just want to fake longs out and bring it back down. But once they didn't bring it back down, I'm like, I told the room, I was like, guys, you got to keep your risk really tight on this because of how many lower highs there are. There's so many lower highs. Like, the fact that this little push didn't immediately collapse is really not a good thing. So, luckily, a lot of my room, including me, put hard stops in the 3.2s, and we got all executed in the 3.2s, didn't get squeezed, right? And a big reason this gapped up so much is because of short sellers who aren't using hard stops, right? So they're not using hard stops. This squeeze happened extremely quickly, right? And it instantly uphalted, right? So you get a massive gap up because of all these shorts trying to get out, right? They're trying to get out, so it gaps up another 15, 20%, whatever. And then, again, I told the room, I was like, guys, I'm going to wait. Um, I don't like shorting out of unhalts, uphalts in most situations, unless there's some ultra big brain reason to do so. I'm not doing it. I'm expecting a lot of volume, and I'm expecting some type of push, right? So this actually ended up being literally ideal. Believe it or not, like this was so laughably aggressive that um, the more aggressive something is towards a key resistance level, overall, the more bearish I think it is, right? So if this was just hovering at, 4.5, 4.5, I wouldn't have been interested. I'm like, well, there's so many things that can happen. But since this decided to just rotate from like $4 straight to 5 with like no bid support, I was like, all right, I'll just short that. Um, so that's the trade I took on that. Um, I wish I got executed a little better, but they did kind of dump it kind of quickly. I had 4.7s, and then um, I de-risked a little bit. This is where the 1 minute 20 is, because a common Momo pattern is to do a instant pullback into the 1 minute 20, and then you rotate it. Right. This is a very common like Momo pattern in the long world. Right. Quick, down only dump into the MA, shoot it right back up. So I'm like, all right, well, if this is going to be trading crazy Momo and do a bunch of squeezes, this is where support would be. So I de-risked a little bit in the 410s. And then we had this great move where they bounced it off of 4 and pushed it towards 4.5, 4.6. It went nowhere. A couple of people in my room did short this. The only problem with shorting this is that there is a lot of empty space up here between 4.5 and $5, right? There's still like more manipulation games that can happen like this, so it's a little risky. Being, in that case, say you got 4.5, you're more than 10% away from high day. You just have to keep that kind of in mind. And then it dumped in the $4 end of day. I did take some off, and then I actually, I'm probably not going to swing this over the weekend, even though it might be a really smart idea. But I took the rest off in the near $4. It kind of rotated in the after hours, and I took the rest off because I really don't feel like babysitting this. But we'll go over the book and the chart and that type of thing. So here's the chart. So once again, I was not awake in the pre-market for this. So I am usually super bearish whenever you get like a pre-market. I made a pre-market pop video, and one of the criteria I talked about, especially in weaker markets, pre-market pop type stuff starts happening more and more often, right? So you get these pops on really low volume, like this candle was 800, this candle was 700, and this candle was 22K. Like the actual parabolic part of the move was on almost no volume because the order book's just really thin. And then they do the thing where volume comes into the stock, but it's already at like the top, potential top of its move, right? So, this was really interesting here. I'll show you the book, but they threw up a huge bid right here, right on the 1 minute 20. And when they initiate, you could see the relative volume, right? Whenever you get in low floats, whenever you get like big relative volume differences where it goes from like, 5x, 10x, 20x times the volume of the previous candles, right? Just went from 3K to 120K. I mean, that's an extreme example, but a lot of times that move is very important, right? In this type of structure, this type of flag-like structure, right? I'm trying to draw here. You know, when the big volume comes in like that, this is pretty much a do or die move. This move is either squeezing high a day or it's a long trap. I mean, it's literally what it is. Like, especially after this much consolidation, the flag is this painted. We're right at the highs, right? Um, it's on this type of move, this is where you have to be paying attention because this is where the shorts are. This is where the short is. It ends up, you could also, this is kind of volatile, but this is nice. This is like a nice structure, um, nice push. You just got to be patient. You got to wait for it. Um, but there was no bid follow up on this. And I think right at 3:30 there was a massive ask, and they just shoved it straight down. So let's just go to that really fast. I wonder what AUVI is going to do. It could go on a multi-day rig. It's one of those tickers that can really do a lot of crazy things. Um, that's market open. This is the move. So here's that big high volume move. Here's that big. They did that thing where they threw up a mini ask. That got filled. Gets pushed towards the bigger ask. You can see there's not a lot of bid support following this up. It instantly starts selling off, and then they actually took out this bid. This was like a 20, 30,000 share bid that they just took out, and it started going down, and it looked like weak market stuff. Um, Here's the interesting thing about this push. So a bunch of volume came in at market open, and if we go back to, I'm trying to find what is the correct, I guess it's this. This. My Thinkorswim stopped working. Oh, is this my thing? No, that's my chart. Oh, here it is. I guess I just moved out of the way. Really big volume actually started coming into this. This is like seven, for a stock that looks really weak, especially opening near the lows like this. Um, 600, 700, 800K is a lot of volume for this type of play. Um, and then, a very bullish factor is, I've been talking about stocks that open near their lows when tend to be bullish, especially if a lot of volumes in the stock. And, stocks that open up near their highs tend to be bearish. Um, so I saw the volume come in, but I didn't want to long because I was like, in these market conditions, you could get big volume, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to squeeze the high day or something like that, right? So I was actually looking for the short, but I didn't short this because there are all these. You could see all the bids. There was like a billion bids on this thing, and I'm like, man, like how can I? It's so ambiguous what I should be doing here, right? There's just like, um, I saw them painting this 305 level. I'm like, well, I wanted to push above that, and when they started pushing above that, there's like 18 layers of bids. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess like I could try to play the chart and just start shorting in the 320s and high 310s, and hopefully hope it worked. But I really didn't like how the book was looking. But then I did something really interesting. On this dump, they willingly took out. There was all these like 15, 20K bids, and they took them all out. But they didn't pull them. Somebody got filled, and one thing I pointed out to my Discord, I was like, you know what? We've seen this trick before where they let huge bids get filled, and then it gets manipulated later and does something crazy, right? And I told us, like, I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna remember that all these gigantic bids, because I was like, I didn't short this because there was like 18 layers of bids. So, you know, but if we go back to the chart here, I'm still thinking weak market. So I told them, I was like, well, we got a quick dump from high day, right? There's all this empty space. Let the stock, don't chase down here. Definitely don't chase down here. I was like, let the stock form some higher lows, because this is how it usually goes. It forms a bunch of higher lows, right? Right, and we could see the 1 minute 200 holding. And then I'm like, where's the paint, right? And the paint's here, and here, right? 304, 305, 306. I just told my room I have an alert above 306. I'll wait for the rotation. Now, a big thing I would want to teach people is I saw a lot of people in the room kind of shorting right away into these candles. Most of the time, you don't need to do that. Like sometimes the level's so painted you have to make split decisions. Like my Roma short, sometimes you just like, hey, I think they're going for this one level. I'm going to instantly get in. But usually there's a pullback in a second push, and I always like I do like waiting for that, and there is an art of like, well, which one do you do? I would say the more painted the level is, and the more aggressive the move is. This move is just like, this move here to here is like a 5% move. Roma was like a crazy up only, $1 move that was like going through a bunch of levels. So I guess the more extreme and aggressive, like MDAI. Um, this type of move, you could see the 3.5 paint, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, and then you got this crazy, 25% squeeze off the lows up only. Like this is a good example of when you kind of need to go in. It's a good, it cannot, it's not a bad idea to go in when um, the key levels get broken because like the more aggressive the liquidity swipe is to the upside, a lot of times the more aggressive the pull is, right? By the way, look at this insane paint job. They had this 3.3 level, and then they did this crazy, crazy, crazy thin manip, swiped the level, and then the rigger was dumping. This was like one of the more insane dumps I've seen recently. Um, he was slamming the bid 500 shares at a time. It was 500, 500, 500, straight down, dude. A $1 move straight down. I didn't get this though. I was not. I should have shorted it. I saw it hovering in the 3.3s here, and I'm like, maybe I should short that. But anyways, this video is about this stock. So yeah, second push. I told my room I was like, I really want 320s. 320s got swiped. Here's your soak, right? They're holding $3. Here's your soak. Second push. I didn't get in on this candle. I was kind of slow, and then this candle happened, and then it started pulling back. I'm like, all right, let me just put on some there. And then they walked it down to the 1 minute 55 and 9, and you could see the volume come in. They touched 302, and then they just market ordered it straight up to 315, and it started stalling. And if we go to the book, we can actually see that on that push. Here's the 302 to 310. You could see all the ass stacked up here, and you could see minimal bid follow-up. So this was really nice. I shorted that, and then I was just like holding it all the way until here. This is where my 258 order went off, and I'm like, this should have immediate continuation. The volume got real, real, real thin, and once like this didn't go down, I was like, let me just de-risk a little bit. It's not a bad idea. But yeah, here's the crazy thing. So right before the squeeze, you could see that there's like 7 levels of ask, and these are all like 10 to 20k size. Like there's a lot of orders, right? There's like over 100k in orders just on DXF feed. It doesn't even include the other feeds. Um, and I saw the minimal bid follow-up, so I'm like, let me short the push. I shorted this push right here, but I'm like, all right, um, let me put my risk into 320s just because of how you could see the paint, right? Like here's high day, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 lower highs, all concentrated, and now we have this, painted resistance. 3.16 is being held down, 3.18 is being held down, and I'm like, all right, man. I told my roommate, I'm like, you got to keep it tight because if they decide to push this, like they soaked this all day, they didn't pull the bid at 280, and we got 17 lower highs right below idea. I was like, you got to keep your risk real, real, real tight on this. And luckily, we all got executed, at the beginning of the squeeze. And then, yeah, here is, we'll just go over the book on that push. This is really ideal. Like, I love these aggressive moves. You can see how little bids there are following this up, especially after like I love it when like these initial bids start getting pulled on the push. So comes up to 5, right? $5 is gonna have, and $5, whole dollar can be decent resistance, right? It just depends on the context of the chart. Um, but yeah, once I saw this get denied, I saw this mini bounce and I got in the 470s. Um, it started going my way, and then new ass started to show up, which I was like, thank God. I was like, don't. I was really afraid this would just bounce off 4.5 and like stop me out. But luckily, um, the ass came through. I took some off. Here's that big $4. You can see the initiate again. Every time you get one of these crazy initiations, there's usually very little bids following this up. There's a couple nice asks up here that you can risk. A couple people in my room took this. I was a little afraid here. I was like, oh man, they're stacking the bids now. Like, look at all these bid stacks. I'm like, oh man, are they gonna rotate this to back up to 5? I was like, that's a little scary. Um, but you never know what's gonna happen. So it ended up stalling, and then they actually started pulling the bids, and you can actually see right here, right before the last mini push, they pulled this bid and started selling. It's classic. So the bids that were so scary that could have led to a squeeze end up getting pulled. So you never know what's going to happen. And then it just kind of, bounced around. I told the room, I was like, well, they're defending $4, so that's a bearish factor. If $4 is getting defended 2, 3, 4 times, then that just means longs are going to be risking $4, right? You can see it here, $4 here, $4 here, $4 here, and then you get the crack because everyone's risking that level, right? So yeah, I mean, it did some AH stuff. I just covered because I didn't want to look at this. We'll see if that's a smart thing. Who knows what's going to happen with this play? Maybe it just gaps down to 3, and I should have swung it, and I'm just dumb for not holding on to this. But yeah, AUVI really interesting. We had our quick pre-market pop, we had a long trap, we had crazy market open volume, we had those big bids getting taken out, we had a backside play with a second push, we had, you know, this crazy manipulated stuff. You had this aggressive move towards high day that just ended up not even doing anything. And yeah, low float stuff, just a bunch of just a bunch of low float stuff. So hopefully that was informative. End up making a pretty decent amount of money on this trade. Ironically, I actually ended up making more money because of squeeze because I was able to do more size and have more range than this type of play. So it actually ended up being kind of great. Just got to I guess one of the big lessons is managing your risk. You know, you can, you know, you can understand the reasoning behind this squeeze, right? And if you understand that reasoning, you can adjust your risk, you know, accordingly. So instead of having your risk at, 3.5 and maybe not even getting executed or having insane slippage, you can have your risk a little lower because you can see on the chart where people are risking and what people are expecting to happen. So, um, anyway, AUVI, have a good weekend, guys. Um, Market's still getting weaker, but stuff like this can happen. This is actually, it shows how long they have to soak in order to initiate a stock like this. So, pretty interesting. So, all right, guys, you have a good one. See you next week. Hopefully, market continues to be mostly weak, and still get pre-market fades, and just understand that sometimes this stuff happens. So, all right, see you guys.